All right, welcome. In this explainer, we're going to skip the whole glamorous magazine cover version of being an entrepreneur. Instead, we're going to dig into the real, disciplined, and yes, sometimes unglamorous truth about building a business in India that's actually built to last. So let's dive right in.
So, let's kick things off with a really provocative fact, one that trips up so many founders. You see, every single day there are startups out there with booming sales, great profit margins on paper, and they just go bankrupt. Poof, gone forever. How is that even possible, right? It feels like the ultimate paradox of being an entrepreneur. We're taught that a great idea plus great sales equals success. But that's not the whole story. It's the stuff nobody talks about. The underlying plumbing, the liquidity, the compliance, the legal stuff. That's what determines if you actually survive. And getting your head around this is the absolute key to building a business that lasts.
Okay, so before you even think about analyzing a market or filling out a single piece of paperwork, the sources we looked at are absolutely crystal clear on this. The whole journey starts with you. It begins with a really tough, honest look at yourself, both psychologically and financially.
Think of it like this. Entrepreneurship is like jumping out of an airplane. Your personal savings, your financial runway, that's your parachute. And you have to check that parachute before you jump, not when you're already in free fall, Because that runway dictates how long you can survive without a regular paycheck. If it's too short, you're not making strategic decisions anymore. You're making decisions based on pure panic. And here's something that gets overlooked all the time: your family support. The sources actually frame this as a foundational business requirement, not just a nice to have. Seriously, think about it. If you're out there fighting battles all day long for your business, and then you have to come home and fight another battle at the dinner table just to defend your choices, your emotional resilience is just shot. You've got nothing left in the tank.
So what this all means is you have to build this kind of psychological filter. You're going to get advice from everyone, and you've got to get really good at telling the difference between helpful, constructive caution from people who actually know what they're talking about and, well, just empty pessimism from folks who are just projecting their own fears onto you. One is valuable data, the other is just noise you have to tune out.
All right, section 2. Once you've got that personal foundation sorted, it's time to actually architect the venture. And this is all about matching your own readiness with two things: a real, validated demand from the market and a legal structure that's totally rock solid. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. There's a huge difference between social validation and market validation. Asking your friends, hey, do you like my idea? That gets you support. They want to be nice. But going out and seeing if a total stranger will actually pull out their wallet and pay for what you're offering, that is market proof. That's when you know you're actually onto something. Okay, so once you have that proof, your legal structure becomes the absolute foundation of your business. And you have to get this right from the start. You just can't decide to turn the foundation of a little house into a skyscraper later on. It doesn't work that way.
So let's look at a couple of options. A sole proprietorship? Super simple to set up. But the big catch is the law sees you and your business as the exact same thing. Which means if the business gets into trouble, your personal assets, your house, your car, are on the line. A private limited company, on the other hand, is a whole different ballgame. It's a separate legal entity. It creates a shield between you and the business, and it's pretty much required if you ever want to raise money from venture capitalists. So you've picked your structure. Now you've got to make it official with what we can call the day one mandatories. These are the absolute essentials. We're talking about getting a PAN, which is your permanent account number for taxes, a TAN, which you need for deducting taxes from payments, and the big one, registration for GST, the goods and services tax. Seriously, without a GST registration, you're pretty much invisible to the entire national supply chain. You can't legally do business with most other companies.
Okay, let's move on. The machine is built, the company legally exists, but now it needs fuel to actually run. And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the single biggest, most fatal blind spot for so many entrepreneurs: managing the actual cash. Listen, if you take one thing away from this whole explainer, let it be this: profit and cash flow are not the same thing, not even close. Profit is just a concept, an accounting number on a spreadsheet. Cash flow, well, that's the real, actual money hitting your bank account. It's what you use to pay your bills. One is an idea, the other is pure survival. So let me show you exactly how this can sink a perfectly good company. Step 1, you land a huge, super profitable contract. Amazing, right? On paper, you're killing it. Step 2, but the client has, say, a 90-day payment term, so you're not going to see a dime for 3 months. Step 3, meanwhile, you still got to pay your employees, your rent, your suppliers, and you have to pay them today. And step 4, your bank account hits zero. The business literally collapses before that big, profitable check ever shows up. It's like dying of thirst while you're standing in the desert, knowing for a fact that a huge rainstorm is on its way. And that is why you have to preserve your liquidity, your cash, at all costs. It's so tempting in the early days to buy big assets, buy an office, buy a fleet of cars. It feels like you're making progress. But what you're really doing is trapping your cash in things you can't easily spend. Renting, on the other hand, keeps you flexible. It gives you the wiggle room you need to pivot, to survive a downturn, to make it through to the next day.
All right, final section. We've built the machine, we've filled it with fuel, so how do we make sure it endures for the long haul? Well, it really boils down to two things: protecting your identity and doing the routine engine maintenance.
Let's talk about your brand. It's your identity, right? Now imagine spending years building an amazing reputation, a name that people trust, but you never bothered to trademark it. What you've essentially done is free market research for a competitor. They can swoop in, legally register your name, and then force you to change everything. It happens. This protection is absolutely non-negotiable.
And right alongside that is ongoing compliance. I want you to think of this like routine maintenance for your car's engine. The legal work doesn't just stop once you launch. You've got to keep up with it. Filing your GST returns, following labor laws, submitting annual reports. It's a constant rhythm. It's not a one-time thing. And if you start skipping the oil changes, well, you know what happens. The whole engine just seizes up.
When you look at this whole roadmap, it really comes down to one core idea. The dream, the big vision, that's what gets you all fired up and gets you to the starting line. But what actually gets you across the finish line year after year, it's the relentless, unglamorous, day-in, day-out discipline. So I'll leave you with this to think about. If long-term success really does hinge on that boring, unglamorous consistency, what's that one small, tedious, everyday task that you're currently ignoring? Because that little thing you keep putting off, that could be the hidden sinkhole that's waiting to swallow your entire empire.
And just before we wrap up, a really important disclaimer. Everything we've talked about today is for general informational purposes only. This isn't professional legal, tax, or financial advice. We're just compiling insights here. So please, for your specific venture, make sure you consult with qualified professionals who can guide you based on your unique situation.